Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching Gulf Today on News X World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who visited Israel for his first visit since taking office, reaffirmed Berlin's support after traditionally solid ties between the countries were shaken by the Gaza war. Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani says negotiations on consolidating the US-backed truce in the war in Gaza are at a critical moment, adding mediators are working to force the next phase of the ceasefire forward. Palestinian militant group Hamas says that it was ready to hand over its arms in the Gaza Strip to the Palestinian Authority only if Israel's army withdraws from the territory. US Security Council delegation visits South Lebanon, urges all sides to stick to truce. The November 2024 ceasefire was supposed to end more than a year of hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah, but Israel has kept up strikes on Lebanon. Christmas tree lights up in Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank for the first time since the war in Gaza began over 2 years ago. Cheer returns to the traditional birthplace of Jesus Christ. US approves potential $90.5 million sale of medium tactical vehicles to Lebanon. The US State Department has greenlit a potential sale of M10858A2 and M10788A2 medium tactical vehicles to Lebanon. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth doubled down on his defense of US military strikes on alleged drug cartel boats in the Caribbean, arguing President Donald Trump has the power to take military action as he sees fit and dismissing concerns that the strikes violate international law. The Venezuelan army has inducted 5,600 new soldiers as the United States increases military pressure on the oil-producing country. According to official figures, Venezuela has 200,000 troops and an additional 200,000 police officers now. And viewers, let's start with the top focus story. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has arrived in Israel for his first visit since taking office, seeking to repair strained ties amid the ongoing Gaza war. Landing in Tel Aviv, Merz was welcomed by Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar, who called him a true friend of Israel. The meeting later with President Isaac Herzog in Jerusalem, Merz stressed that Germany's commitment to Israel remains an unchanging core principle of its foreign policy. Earlier in the day, Merz held talks with Jordan's King Abdullah during a brief stopover, focusing on the fragile peace process and urging increased humanitarian aid to Gaza. He reiterated Germany and Jordan's support for a negotiated two-state solution and said there can be no place for terrorism or anti-Semitism in the region's future. Listen in.
Als eine große Auszeichnung und als eine wirklich große Ehre, hier sein zu dürfen und noch einmal zu versichern, es gehört und bleibt der unveränderliche Wesenskern der Politik der Bundesrepublik Deutschland, an der Seite dieses Landes zu stehen.
And Professor Rohan Gunaratna, who's an international affairs expert, joins us live from Singapore now. Thank you, Professor Gunaratna, for joining us here at News X World. Now, this is very crucial, the visit of Merz, and his meeting, of course, is coming after Netanyahu has asked for a presidential pardon on the corruption trial. How do you think that's going to go on? And given that Merz has met with Isaac Herzog in the middle of this situation?
I believe that the Germans have a very good understanding of what is happening. Germany understands the threat of terrorism, that the Gaza war started because of a very brutal Hamas attack that took place in 2023, October 7th. And of course, Germany is fully backing the dismantlement of Hamas, the disarming of Hamas, the demobilization of Hamas. But of course, Germany is also very concerned about the civilian deaths in Gaza. Germany also fully supports that there should be a long-term solution to the Palestinian issue, and that is a two-state solution should be created at some point. But they also understand that without a proper governing authority in Gaza, post-Hamas, that it will not work. So there are some solutions that require time and patience, and Germany fully understands it. And I think the most important thing is that the Germans are engaged, and the Germans want stability and security in the Middle East, because that has an impact also on their own security in Europe.
Sure. All right. If you want to add on to what you were saying, please do continue. But I also want your perspective on Mayor's statement when he says that, of course, Israel remains an unchanging core of German policy.
Yes, it is because Germany, the Nazis were in Germany, and of course 6 million Jews were killed. And the Germans want to make sure that there is no harm that will befall either on the Palestinians or the Israelis. The Germans are very concerned about what happened in history, so Germany will steadfastly support the resolution to the dispute that exists between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
But at the same time, he visits Jordan and he says that we have to keep the way open for a Palestinian state. Of course, that's how diplomacy goes. But how do you think Mayors is going to balance that equation?
I think that there will be a Palestinian state, but there is no possibility to create a sustainable Palestinian state at this stage, because basically Hamas is being replaced after such a brutal attack. No one wants Hamas to govern Gaza. No one wants Hamas to play any role in Gaza. No one sensible wants a terrorist and an extremist group like Hamas to have any administrative, military or governance role in the future.
Right. I'll take this up in a discussion as we move on, and I request you to stay on now, Professor Gunaratna. Viewers, let's also tell you that elsewhere in the Middle East, Qatar's Prime Minister says that negotiations to consolidate the US-backed truce in Gaza have reached a critical moment. Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani told the Doha Forum that mediators are working urgently to push the next phase of the ceasefire forward, but warned the current lull is only a pause, not a true ceasefire. Prime Minister Al Thani also said a real ceasefire requires a full Israeli withdrawal and restored stability in Gaza. Conditions, he says, are far from being met. Talks continue on US President Donald Trump's broader plan to end the two-year war, including establishing an international security force and forming an interim technocratic Palestinian government. But negotiators say the makeup and mandate of that force remain major obstacles. Meanwhile, despite the truce, violence has persisted. Palestinian health officials report 7 people killed Saturday in Israeli strikes across northern Gaza, including a 70-year-old woman. And I now request Professor Gunaratna to join us back in the discussion here. Professor Gunaratna, now this is also a test for Trump's diplomacy. The peace plans that he's trying to mediate are not standing the test of time. Ceasefires are violated. whether it's about the situation in Middle East or the Ukraine Russia war. That of course is a separate question, but let's focus on how Trump's diplomacy is now. The Middle East situation remains a litmus test for it.
Kriti, what you are saying is correct. That is, the peace plan, Trump's peace plan, has three phases. First phase is the release of all the living and the deceased hostages, and that has been done except one deceased hostage, an Israeli hostage. Everyone else has been released, both deceased and alive. In fact, the last hostage that was released was a Thai agricultural worker, and there is an Israeli policeman whose body is likely to be released in the coming days by Hamas. Then after that, the phase one will end, which is the release of the hostages first. Phase two is Hamas disarmament, or what you call the demobilization. But for this, Israel will have to withdraw. Israel still maintains a presence in Gaza. So the second phase is the most crucial phase, where Hamas will basically give up their weapons and will play no longer a role in the governance of Gaza. And of course, the Israel will have to move, and that is why the mediators are also now providing their views that this is the most crucial phase. President Trump himself is very committed to it. Day before yesterday, the White House released the national security strategy, and in that strategy, in the introduction itself, Trump refers to these developments. So I personally believe that Trump will play a very important role to ensure that the Gaza peace plan will work, because he's already committed to it. He's already made so many announcements. And of course, there are many countries in the Middle East who are determined to ensure that there is a restoration of peace and security in Gaza, so that the Middle East can be a stable region.
In fact, Professor Gunratna, let's give our viewers some context to that as far as Hamas giving up arms is concerned. Viewers, let's tell you that Hamas has said that it is prepared to hand over its weapons in the Gaza Strip to the Palestinian Authority, but only if Israeli occupation ends. Chief negotiator Khalil Al-Hayya said the group's weapons are tied to the existence of occupation and aggression and would be placed under the authority of a sovereign Palestinian state once Israel withdraws. Hamas also signaled its willingness to accept UN forces as a separation and monitoring force to enforce a ceasefire, but firmly rejected any international mission aimed at disarming the group. The statement marks a potential step toward consolidating the Gaza truce, but it underscores ongoing disagreements over the presence and mandate of outside forces in the territory. I now request Professor Gunaratna to join us back. We were talking about Hamas's disarmament, but of course, once again, it's repeating how it will only give up arms if Israel exits Gaza and ends its occupation in Palestine. Now, how is this even possible, and how are peace efforts to go forward if, because like you said, nobody wants Hamas in Palestine?
Kriti, what you said is correct. That is, there is a request for an international stabilization force, and there are 50 countries that are going to be a part of that force. There is a very significant discussions right now going on, who is acceptable and who is going to maintain that presence. Because when Hamas disarms and demobilizes, there's going to be what is called a political and a security vacuum created. And everyone wants that vacuum to be filled super fast. Otherwise, there'll be other actors, other criminal and other elements that will emerge. And of course, the Hamas wants Israelis, IDF to withdraw. And So I personally believe that there is forward movement on this. The Americans have already established capability in Israel that is going to ensure that there is partners from around the world, from Indonesia to Egypt to Qatar to Turkey, that will participate in that force. But there is currently a lot of debate within Israel because Israel has certain reservations about certain countries participating in that force. But I believe that this will be resolved in the coming days and coming months. Trump is, of course, very hard and harsh, and he will tell Netanyahu that it is so important to move forward to phase two. So I personally believe that there will be a resolution to this. Although the Israelis are very keen to eliminate and dismantle Hamas as an organization, and that could also very well happen. Hamas could, once that one remains of the hostage is released, I believe that it is very possible that IDF will commence their campaign. But militarily, to eliminate Hamas, to dismantle Hamas is very challenging because Hamas is a very deep-rooted organization. There are thousands of Hamas supporters. Hamas is a very weak organization today. But to eliminate, to root out Hamas, to dismantle Hamas will be a huge challenge for Israel. So it is better for there to be a peace agreement and for an international stabilization force to become operational in Gaza.
All right, thank you for explaining that to us, Professor Gunaratna, in detail, and thank you also for speaking to us and joining us. For now, viewers, let's now move on. Now, the United Nations Security Council delegation has called on all parties to uphold the year-old ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah after visiting Lebanon. Slovenian Ambassador Samuel Zbogar, speaking in Beirut, emphasized the importance of sticking to the cessation of hostilities agreement from November last year. However, Hezbollah's chief, Naim Qassem, sharply criticized the Lebanese government's decision to send a civilian envoy to the ceasefire talks and called it a free concession to Israel and a violation of previous positions. The move comes after both Israel and Lebanon sent civilian delegates to a military committee on December 3, marking a significant expansion of dialogue between the two nations. Let's listen into what UN Ambassador Samuel Bogar had to say.
We came to Beirut at the pivotal time for the implementation of the relevant resolutions and for implementation of the cessation of hostilities agreement of November of last year. All parties must uphold the November 2024 cessation of hostilities agreement, and we recognize progress achieved by Lebanon this year.
Jadalia Blum, Middle East Affairs expert, joins us live from LA in Israel. Thank you, Jadalia, for joining us. Jadalia, of course, statements coming in from the UN Security Council delegations that's visiting Lebanon. But my question, who is taking the United Nations seriously at this point in time?
That's a really good question. The UN actually was created by free states in its inception. It actually was ruled by a majority of free countries, and now it's being ruled by a majority of fear countries, dictatorships, communists, which are given equal rights. So I think anybody who has any semblance of knowledge or moral clarity wouldn't take the UN seriously at this point. It's being hijacked by those who have political aspirations for domination and to upend the Western civilization. The UN is being used as a body that has international legitimacy in order to actually destroy a lot of what actually made civilization thrive and prosper throughout the last couple hundred years with Western civilization. So I don't know if anybody's taking them seriously at all right now, and certainly when it comes to Hezbollah talking about a ceasefire, the fact that they're not even talking about that Hezbollah, just like Hamas, were created specifically to fight, to destroy Israel. So to purport that you're working on a ceasefire with a militant implant from the Iranian regime, who has clearly taken over Lebanon, and trying to have some sort of ceasefire peace agreement with them intact is ridiculous on its face. It's not going to happen. They're not going to disarm, just like your previous guest was talking about how Hamas will disarm if Israel withdraws, so they can have peace within Gaza. These terror groups, these Iranian proxies, were created specifically to destroy the Jewish state. There is no negotiation. There's no ceasefire. The only way to remove them is by force, is by war, and is by complete war, not a war that ends in a diplomatic agreement that only creates enough quiet time for them to rebuild and then to rearm and to reattack.
All right, Jadali, I'd leave it at that for now. Thank you for speaking to us on this. And viewers, let's get some more news. A giant Christmas tree has taken root in Bethlehem's Manga Square as it has been lit up between the Church of the Nativity and a mosque adorned with lights, kicking off seasonal festivities. Celebrations are returning to their full festivities this year in West Bank's Bethlehem, the city regarded by Christians as the birthplace of Jesus Christ following a more somber mood over the past 2 years at the height of the war in the Palestinian territory of the Gaza Strip. Bethlehem, which neighbors Jerusalem in the West Bank, has endured years of tension, but residents say that the return of celebrations mark an important step toward a moment of relief after a difficult period. Listen in.
It's been 2 years without celebrating this day. After all of the situation that happened, it's like a symbol for resilience. We came here today, coming like 100 kilometers to be here today. It's very special because we want to celebrate and be with our brothers and sisters in Bethlehem to enjoy this day.
People, we are suffering from all that Israeli occupation, and all the Palestinians still have a hope. Still, we believe in peace.
Moving on, let's also tell you that the United States has approved the potential sale of medium tactical vehicles and related equipment to Lebanon, a deal valued at $90.5 million with Oshkosh Defense as the principal contractor. The sale includes M1085A2 and M1078A2 vehicles intended to strengthen Lebanon's official security forces. The timing comes amid intense domestic pressure in Lebanon to disarm Hezbollah, which retains a heavy arsenal and has firmly rejected government demands to surrender its weapons. Israel has warned that failure to disarm Hezbollah could trigger renewed military action in southern Lebanon. While the U.S. sale aims to bolster Lebanon's state institution, it lands in a politically sensitive environment. Analysts warn the transfer could exacerbate tension between state forces and Hezbollah, highlighting the challenge of consolidating security and stability in the country. This move underscores the delicate balancing act facing Lebanon's government, strengthening official forces while managing a powerful non-state actor that continues to wield significant influence. Moving on, hundreds of Israelis held two separate protests in Tel Aviv on Saturday, each targeting a different controversy involving Prime Minister Netanyahu's government. The first demonstration focused on the events of the October 7 attack, with protesters demanding the appointment of an independent state inquiry. They accused the government of avoiding accountability and object to Netanyahu selecting committee members, saying it would undermine the investigation's integrity. A second crowd gathered nearby to protest Netanyahu's announcement that he has submitted a request for a pardon to end his long-running corruption trial. Netanyahu insists the cases are politically driven, but demonstrators say the move further erodes public trust. Both protests unfolded against the backdrop of the war that began after the Hamas-led militants killed 1,200 people and took 251 hostages on October 7, and Israel's offensive in Gaza has killed more than 69,700 Palestinians, and most of them were civilians. Let's take a look at what the protesters are saying.
Our Prime Minister is charged with very severe crimes. He's trying to flee from court. And in order to do that, he is asked also for a pardon. That is absolutely insane, because you can be pardoned if you don't plead guilty.
We are here is because we are starting to hear talks about a pardon to Netanyahu. President Trump had talked about it. President Herzog received a letter from Netanyahu and did dismiss it offhand, as he should have been.
What we're doing tonight is protesting against the current actions of the government, mainly not to the decision not to have an investigation committee to investigate the aftermath of October 7th, and the fact that this government refuses to draft ultra-Orthodox Haredi men to the army, while there is an acute need of 12,000 soldiers right now.
And that's a wrap on Gulf Today. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.